and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. On this episode of the Jam Yearbook, we're going to bring you the best of what we found exploring the month of November 2023.
And some of the worst, like we always do, because it wouldn't be fair if we took the time to listen to all of this music and didn't at least try to warn you.
Yes, be warned. There was plenty of junk this month.
There was.
Before we get started, though, let's have the visit from the Reaper. We almost escaped and didn't have a visit this month. But sadly, on the last day, we had to say goodbye to Shane McGowan of the Pogues.
Yes, he died on November 30th. He melded punk, folk, balladry, Woody Guthrie-style protest blues with a fiery lyrical flair and a style that was completely his own. He bridged England and Ireland during a really difficult time as a child born to Irish immigrants and growing up in Kent. The impact of his death, Matt, it was really felt over here. You knew it when it happened that day. It was national news. He'd been sick for years, and I don't think there was going to be a comeback. That wasn't expected, but his loss was really felt across the country and the musical world. But now, Matt, for the rest of the show, it's just pretty much going to be saying happy birthday, I think.
Yeah, we love honoring those that have passed, but let's not forget to celebrate those who are still with us, and November is jam-packed. I couldn't believe we had to leave a couple out because we're like, well, maybe people won't really care about these ones. But join us in wishing a happy birthday to
Anthony Kiedis, Rick Allen, Lyle Lovett, Katie Lang, Nelly, Adam Ant, and Art Garfunkel.
And continuing on, Mike Score from Flock of Seagulls, Corey Glover, Joni Mitchell, Lord, Bonnie Raitt, Ricky Lee Jones, and Susan Tedeschi.
Yeah, and one of my favorites, Neil Young. One of Matt's favorites, Yanni and his amazing skin flute.
Hey, that's supposed to be for you, pal.
Travis Barker, Frida Lingstad, Chad Kroger, another one of Matt's favorites. Kirk Hammett, Matt Sorum. Doom, 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 doom.
Jim's favorite drum fill of all time. Continuing on, happy birthday to Björk, Stephen Van Zandt, Tina Weymouth, Bruce Hornsby, Miley Cyrus, Jim's favorite, Matt Cameron, Billy Idol, and Sherry Curry.
Nice.
But that wraps up the birthdays. But there are some albums also celebrating anniversaries here in November. These will really make me feel my age. We're going to wish 30-year happy anniversary. They were both released on the same day, November 9th, 1993, to the debut of Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the Wu-Tang, and A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders.
Classic hip hop. And then an album that was a top 5 formative record for me in my teen years. I can't imagine having ever grown up without REM's Green. Some of those songs today, the right moment, the right time, still bring me right back to that place when I was 15, 16 years old trying to figure out life.
And then 40th anniversary goes to Yes, 90125, Duran Duran, 7 and the Ragged Tiger, U2, Under a Blood Red Sky, Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. And even older, 50 years, Black Sabbath, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Billy Joel, Jim's, we're having a lot of favorites, Jim's favorite, Billy Joel, Piano Man, and one of Paul McCartney's best, Band on the Run.
It's crazy because we're going to go back now 55 years, and it's the White Album from the Beatles.
It's amazing the growth he had in songwriting between that 5 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to tell my Helter Skelter story since this is the anniversary of the White Album, and I've never had the chance to tell this story on the show. There are some people out there that argue that Helter Skelter was the first metal song of all time. But as far as Helter Skelter goes, I think a lot of people relate Helter Skelter, as I knew it growing up, to Charles Manson and the Manson family murders out in Laurel Canyon in California in the late 1960s. Sharon Tate and some other well-known actors, actresses at the time were murdered. But one of the things that happened in that gruesome act was the words Helter Skelter were spelt out in blood on the wall in the home where they were killed. And it kind of became synonymous with Charles Manson and these murders. I think there was a TV movie that was on in the early 80s. There was a book written. They were both called Helter Skelter. So as a kid growing up, being deathly afraid of Charles Manson and thinking that was absolutely crazy, and kind of knowing about it from a young age, because we didn't have that shit hidden from us when we were kids. I was afraid of the song Helter Skelter by the Beatles. And growing up in a religious environment, it was considered by some people that I hung around with to be a demonic song. And if you listened to it, bad things were going to happen. And it was just an evil song that inspired Charles Manson to go out and do these things. So I had this concept that it was a really kind of dark, evil song. I did kind of let that slide when I got into my early 20s, and I covered it in a band that I was playing with, and I learned all the lyrics, and I loved playing the song. U2 had done a live version of it on Rattle and Hum that was quite popular when it came out. I think it was 1987, 1988. But in the year 1998, I was walking down Princes Street in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I saw this dome cone thing coming out of the ground, this thing, and just sitting there, and the big sign at the top that said Helter Skelter. And I found out that you go in, there is a circular staircase in the middle, and you go up to the top of it, and you get this little mat thing like you would at the fair to go down the slides, and you slide around the outside of it. And I stood outside this thing, and all of a sudden it hit me. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Then I stop and I turn and I go for a ride till I get to the bottom and I see you again. This song that had scared the shit out of me is probably like an 8 to 12-year-old was actually just about a children's ride. Yeah, a slide.
Yeah.
It's just a slide. And it's really cool. It's a great song. But I had to share that with you because I think it's pretty funny how we have these concepts of things when we're children, and then we have these epiphanies in our adult lives and go, whoa, shit, that's what that was. That was my Helter Skelter story.
And I think the chaos in that song of the recording and the aggressiveness of it is because they did so many takes.
Yeah.
I mean, that blisters on me fingers at the end. That's a real scream because he's got blisters. They recorded that song so many times. They were probably legit pissed off.
And they were playing that song hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But keeping with what's old, we found a ton of releases from familiar names. They're still around, and there are, again, so many, just like the birthdays, so many to mention. Some of them not worth bringing up, like Garth Brooks. That I tapped out within 10 seconds. I said, why am I putting myself through this?
I didn't even try.
I should have, but I'm like, well, let me see. Nope. Well, no, I came to my senses. I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time. But Mickey Dolenz, of Monkees fame, has an EP of REM covers. The debate of covers is never ending, but I like that he doesn't make it feel like a karaoke session.
Yeah, I was really afraid of this before hitting the play button. Mike Dolenz sings REM. It's not bad. I still think it has that feel of the Monkees. It has that syncopation on the piano. But yeah, the songs there, it's REM.
That's exactly it. I wanted it to sound closer to the Monkees than REM, and he delivered. Leaving New York was a surprise inclusion. I thought he'd go more into the deeper catalog, but it was a good song.
It was good.
And then making a comeback after 22 years is Semisonic. I listened to more Semisonic this week than ever before. I never really dove into them before, so I can't really say how this sits in with the rest of their catalog. But it's not a rehash of Closing Time, and it was a good listen.
Yeah, I didn't really listen to a lot of Semisonic back in the day, but I worked in a restaurant as a line cook when Closing Time was a hit song on the radio. And boy, did you all sing along to that when you were cleaning the kitchen at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't mentioned it, I probably wouldn't have listened to it. I would have passed right by it. Nope, would have gone right over my head. But you made me curious. And I think I messaged you and I said, Matt, this is dad rock, but it's not bad rock.
No.
The younger people that might be listening to this show possibly wouldn't really get into it, but it's not a bad album. It's better than most of the comebacks from that era that I've heard. And I like the title track, A Little Bit of Sun. It's a decent song.
Yeah, that gave me Tom Petty vibes from his Full Moon Fever era. You know, we'll see if they can draw some attention after such a long absence. And I think that's why I checked it out, because I'm like, Semisonic, I don't remember, when we're going through the years of really seeing them having releases. And I looked them up and I'm like, wait, 22 years? I got to check that out. Anyone watching the NFL on Thanksgiving saw Dolly Parton is out to prove that she's a rock star. It's hard to say anything bad about Dolly. It really is. I both of us, we have so much respect for her, and she's earned the right to do whatever the hell she wants.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on thinking it would be a quick listen, the usual 45 minutes or so, but no, this thing's over 2 hours, and it's full of guest spots by the original artists. But 2 hours, that's a big listen.
It surprised me too. When I first opened it up on Spotify, I thought, oh, I'm going to, listen to this really quickly. There's probably going to be 10 songs on here. And yeah, but there are 20, and some of these songs are 7 to 8 minutes long. If anybody else had done this, we would have been calling it self-indulgent.
Oh, without a doubt.
I also respect her enough to lay off being negative. You mentioned karaoke when we were talking about Mickey Dolenz just there and REM. And this album's a little different because it does sound like karaoke, but it is the world's best karaoke party. The positives for me, I expected the music to be a little hollow and tinny. I wasn't expecting it to be so well produced, but it's got a great sound. Lizzo's flute skills, they really shine on Stairway to Heaven. And some of the guests are really great to hear sing along with Dolly. I got nostalgic chills hearing Steve Perry's voice singing Open Arms. I was like, wait, is that really Steve Perry singing? Because I just let the album play and I wasn't looking at each track. And when I heard him come in, it was, like a double take or a double listen because I just couldn't believe I was hearing Steve Perry sing Open Arms again. When do you think the last time that has happened? And Sting does a great job harmonizing with her on the track that they share. It's like she brought old friends from my childhood back.
And did you notice how weird Kevin Cronin sounded?
Yeah, he doesn't sound the same anymore out of everybody else that's on that album.
Yeah, I don't know if he's, something happened, but yeah, he was off.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. We will never bash Dolly. She can do whatever she wants. She's at that point in her career, and she's done enough. She can do whatever the hell she wants. Hats off to her.
Yep.
We had more flutes, and we knew what to do with this week. Thank God it's not April, or we would have had to talk about that new Jethro Tull album.
I feel bad saying that the Andre 3000 flute album is the take out the trash part of the show, because I don't think it belongs in that category, but it almost would fit there if we wanted to really go after him. So it is something we need to talk about.
Yeah, it is, because it was, for one, the fact that he was putting out an album was a complete surprise. Nobody knew this was coming. But that surprise was only outdone by what we heard. It's more of a disappointment because it's so different from what anyone expected or had hoped for. We wanted Outcast, right? Mm-hmm. But he followed his heart, and he made art that his heart was telling him to do.
Yeah, I really wish someone had told me ahead of time. I don't mind that he wants to make different music. Kudos. He's written some of the greatest songs. I just wasn't prepared for what we got. And it is now being referred to as the flute album by people. But this is the guy who wrote Hey Ya and some of the coolest hip hop of the noughties. I thought he was going to run a clinic for modern rap. That when I saw he had an album and I put it on, I thought, oh boy, here comes Andre 3000. He's going to show everybody how this is done again. And that first track, no, it was a 12-minute long instrumental called I Really Wanted to Make a Rap Album.
Yeah, he was honest.
It's almost like he was apologetic in that title.
Yeah.
Andre, we really wanted a rap album too. but do your thing. It's your thing. Do it, I guess.
Yeah. And my kids were pumped for it. Me and Max were like, hey, Andre, it's tomorrow. And then we listened to it and we both looked at each other like complete stunned silence. Like, what the fuck is this? But on the other hand, I'm like, you know what? I am happy that he did it because he can show he's more than hip hop. I'm not saying, hip hop is some lowest common denominator, but that the dude has an artistic ability beyond it.
Oh yeah. He's a modern day Renaissance man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had the new release from the Beatles. So this is divisive. I think this belongs in the take out the trash for some people and not necessarily for us. This could be an entire show down the road because we have ABBA already and Kiss coming out as concert avatars. So they are digital characters of ABBA and Kiss that will be performing around the world at some point. And now we have AI vocals of John Lennon. completely endorsed by the remaining Beatles and his family. So this is something that they are 100% behind. What were your feelings the first time you heard this? Did you have much anticipation for it in the first place?
Huge anticipation, huge anticipation. And I was let down. Hopefully, I think I want to come down on the side of hoping that Yoko Ono has the rights to whatever AI they are doing with his voice, because I don't think that she would have any like shady dealings with it or misuse of it. As far as I should have known better for my anticipation. I like the melody that Faux John is singing, but this is something more in the vein of what he would have done solo, or maybe if he was part of the Traveling Wilburys, that Jeff Lynne inspired
Mhm.
era with George Harrison. It just didn't sound like a Beatles song to me. The strings helped push it closer to that. And that take is probably unfair to the song itself. It is a good song. Maybe I just wanted an upbeat song, because when they put out Free as a Bird on the anthology, I'm like,
Yep.
oh no, I want something from Rubber Soul. I want something more in that vein. It's a good song. They're already tugging at the heartstrings by releasing anything to begin with. I didn't need a mellow, saddish song in remembrance of John. I wanted something that rocked.
I agree with you. I was really taken back by it a little bit. And I think one of the things we need to realize about the Beatles is because of how big, how massive they are to the music world, everything's already out there. Everything
Mm.
they've ever done, anybody who has anything recorded of them has released it. We've had an opportunity. Even this was a kind of known demo that he recorded on a cassette tape, and that's where they got the AI vocals from. And it was something that had been heard before.
Yeah, they tried to do it during the anthology, but
They
it was
did.
just too far degraded that they couldn't make anything, listenable out of it.
Yeah. But I think that we've already gotten the best of the Beatles. And yeah, we want one more While My Guitar Gently Weeps, or we want one more Come Together, or we want one more She Loves You. But they released everything that they wrote that was really good. And I don't think there's much hiding in their cupboard anymore.
There's probably nothing hiding in their cupboard, and
No.
that's probably the saddest part, right? Because they've remixed and reproduced and re-released everything. So now it's like, okay, what possibly could they do besides going down that AI avatar road, which hopefully they don't. I think I'd rather see all the tribute bands, because I think the ones that I've seen, they do a great job,
Yeah.
and it's fun.
I think what they were trying to do was be the band that broke through with AI. So the Beatles were
Mm.
there, and they really are the foundation of all modern pop rock music in many ways. People can argue Elvis, they can go back to Chuck Berry and Little Richard, but globally, nobody was more embraced than the Beatles. And I think because of their stature in the music world, with AI on the cusp of taking over the world at this moment, they wanted today's 20-year-old to know when they're our age that, oh yeah, the first number one AI song was this song by the Beatles. However, it did not reach number one because they were beaten by Taylor Swift.
Everybody's getting pounded by Taylor Swift
Yeah,
right now.
in a re-release of her old album.
Yeah. Hey, kudos to her.
Yeah.
And I'm all on board with the Beatles being first with this AI thing, especially when you think back to Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, with how revolutionary they were.
And that's what they were trying to do here. It's just be
Yes.
revolutionary, I believe. So away from the Beatles, there was, guys that are just kind of as classic, in my opinion, Junior Wells and Buddy Guy. And I'm not going to try to wax poetic over this team up. They cover the Rolling Stones song Miss You, and it's really good. People, go check it out. Junior Wells and Buddy Guy, Miss You by the Rolling Stones.
It's sad, but it seems Junior Wells been forgotten.
Mhm.
Usually when we talk about blues, it revolves around the guitar players. Muddy, Buddy, BB, there's always got to be the sing and the lick, sing and the lick. And we leave out other great blues artists like Slim Harpo or Junior Wells. They're mainly harmonica players. If we paid closer attention throughout the year, we would have noticed that there have been some re-releases of Junior Wells, Live in Hiroshima and Chicago Hustle, both with Buddy Guy. And after you brought him up one day, I went into Spotify and I found a few singles that they've been remixing and probably cleaning up old recordings. I don't know who's behind it, but I hope they do more. We missed It's Your Voodoo Working in October, but safe to say I went down a Junior Wells rabbit hole this week.
I'm glad I
That was
sent you
good.
there. That's cool. That's
Yeah, it
cool.
was a good one. And Green Day, they dropped a couple songs from their upcoming January 2024 release. Have we talked shit about Green Day yet, Jim?
We need to.
We must have. I don't think we've gone all in on them because it's more of us growing out of them and maybe wanting them to be something that, you know, they grew in a different direction. You know, that's their prerogative. But these two songs, Look Ma, No Brains, and The American Dream Is Killing Me, brought me back to Green Day a little bit. They quietly released the 30th anniversary edition of Dookie back in September, and I think revisiting that album was good for them.
Well, I'll give that another listen with that perspective, because I think like we talk about bands that become massive, American Idiot kind of killed Green Day for me. It stuck a knife in them.
100%.
And so, yeah, I'll go back and give this a fresh listen. Another band from the 90s, Porno for Pyros, they pleasantly popped back with a single called Agua. And it sounds like Porno for Pyros. It doesn't necessarily rip off their old stuff or sound like rehashed Porno for Pyros from the 90s, but it just sounds like if they'd kept going for the past 25, 30 years, this would have been one of their new songs.
Perry Farrell can whip out songs like these that completely like pull me in.
Yeah.
And just make me want to listen to it over and over. He's a, you know, he follows the inner ear that he has, and he makes songs that are beyond me. And I kind of come to them late, but then he's got songs like this that I'm hooked from the beginning.
Yeah, it's good. And Metal Matt, I'll bring it up first because I found it and shared it with you. But there was another new Judas Priest single, and I liked it better than the first one.
Yeah, I liked the first one, Panic Attack, a lot more than you. This new one, Trial by Fire, it's good. I like Panic Attack a little bit more. I think it harkens back to a little bit older sound for them. But both of these songs, they're doing their job. I'm really looking forward to the new Judas Priest album, and I haven't said that in decades. But Jim, we're finding this out now that we're really like diving into music. Specifically, this Judas Priest album isn't due to be released until March of 2024. And Green Day, you know, it's coming out in January. That's not too bad. But Panic Attack was released in October.
Yeah.
This album's not due out till March. I mean, that's 5 months early. Is this the normal thing? This seems too early to me, but I guess if it does its job.
I think it is slightly premature.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder, because we're hearing the more of a nostalgic sound from them, if this might be like a final hurrah. So they're trying to, you know, build up that interest early. And Jim, they're going to be in Glasgow, March 11th. All for you. I would go see him if I was there.
Well, it could explain things though, because they're gearing up interest for the tour. They want to stir up the old Priest fans who may have gone to hear the classics one too many times. So these songs are solid and they have a fresh sound, but they still feel like old school Judas Priest. All right. So let's get on from the old stuff, because anybody under the age of 40 right now has probably shut us off, or they're snoring, or they're just listening out of politeness because
I don't know. We talked about Green Day. Pop punk's still a thing, right?
Yeah, they're the granddaddies of pop punk though.
Yep. Walkers and all.
What wasn't old that caught our attention?
All right. We're going to try and not give into the ranting, but we're finding the latter months of years, they tend to be thin on stuff that really grab us.
Yeah, there wasn't much. We'll bring up some people though, and we're going to talk about one of our fellow Vermonters, Noah Kahn. He had the single with Hozier, Northern Attitude.
All right, so grant us some leeway on this one. Noah's album Stick Season completely slipped by me upon its original release a year ago. It got re-released this past summer, 2023. It started to get on my radar. He was in our notes, a few months ago,
Mhm.
but we never pulled on that thread. I was thinking that, well, he's a Vermonter. What's his reach? No disrespect to Vermonters at all. We're both we're both from Vermont, Northern Vermont specifically. We love that he's having this moment and hope it doesn't end anytime soon. I think I'm just conditioned that all people, what they think about when they hear music from Vermont is Fish or Grace Potter. And he was up for a Grammy earlier this year, but because we don't pay attention to that shit, it's not on our radar at all.
Right now, stick season is on the radio over here.
Sweet.
It's pretty big. It's really cool to be driving around in the car in Aberdeen, Scotland, and all of a sudden you're singing along to "And I Love Vermont, it's the season of the sticks." There's something refreshing about that. I think on the flip side of that, when Linda was living in the States, she probably would have loved any song that brought up something about Scotland, it just brought her
Yeah.
back home. And so when I'm
Yeah.
riding around in the car here and I get to sing about Love in Vermont, I've thought about going to the show. I've got the end of the show is always Peace, Love, and Podcast, but I have a t-shirt that's the state of Vermont and it says Peace, Love, and Vermont on it. And I'm just like, I need to go to this show and wear this shirt.
Yeah, that song is almost, especially that chorus, it's almost anthemic for us
It is. Yeah.
being from Vermont. And it is great to just belt it out.
And if people don't know what stick season is, that's when all the leaves have fallen off the trees and everything just kind of feels dead. You haven't gotten to winter yet. You don't have snow. That's coming. Christmas and another season is coming, but there's always this lull. And that's between really kind of October and mid-November, depending upon weather patterns.
But then there's another stick season in spring where you're picking up all the goddamn sticks that fell off the trees.
That is stick season as well. Yeah.
I hate that. A couple months ago, we were playing games around the table and my son's girlfriend brought him up. Immediately, I thought to myself, okay, hold on. I know that name and somebody's actually talking about him without me, talking about it first. And it made me feel shit. I should have paid attention. He was on Saturday Night Live this past weekend and he did a great job. So shame on us for not taking the time to appreciate a fellow Vermonter's success. In our defense, it's only been the last couple of months that his exposure has been growing to this point where people like me and probably you too, Jim, who don't listen to the radio much or we don't pay attention to things like the Grammys. And now we're becoming aware and he deserves all of this.
Yeah, he's doing great. Playing Glasgow, the OVO Hydro. That's 14,300 people that fill that place, and it is sold out in Scotland. This guy from Vermont, he deserves that little bit of our attention. And I agree with all you said. I completely welcome Vermont for being known more than just jam music.
Jam music, beer, and maple syrup. Probably that's your Vermont trifecta right there, bud. All while wearing your best flannel, of course.
Yes, and your favorite baseball cap when you're dressed up at a wedding.
Yep. Red Sox or Yankees, your choice.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to take us out of Vermont because we could probably just nostalgically go back there.
Yeah. Back, I'm here.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But now let's get our monthly dose of Australia.
Yay.
We make a playlist every single month where we add songs that we find and share them back and forth with one another. And I was so fed up early on in November with trying to find anything that was good that I actually looked up what was coming out in Australia and found their new release playlist and shared a bunch of songs off of that with you instead of the stuff that's been coming out in the States and over here in the UK. And I have to say, there's not a lot that I really dragged onto the show today, but it was all substance wise much better than a lot of other stuff I was finding.
Oh, absolutely. We've been finding tons of great stuff coming out of Australia.
Yeah. And one of the favorite bands that we found, Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, great band, but they finally released their full album.
I loved everything about this album. It's playful and fun, great energy. The album cover made me crack up. So you kind of, judging a book by a cover, you dragged me in that way. There's just the right amount of noodling around. Over the last year or so, I've finally been digging through the King Gizzard discography. Thanks to the show, I finally said, okay, I'm finally going to listen. And I loved it. And the Porn Crumpets, they hit similar tones. It's not a direct hit. They're their own thing, but there's something in the water down there. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there was also Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers. I got to get that right. That's
yeah.
Happier Than Ever. a surprise single that they dropped just after releasing their album. And it's a great song, as good as anything else on their album, as far as I hear. And I'm definitely going to keep them on our radar.
Yeah, it's not bad for a Billie Eilish cover, right? They have my ear going forward. A lot of it is remembering all of these band names, but there's a lot from Australia that I've got these names memorized now. So when they come up when we're researching, I'm going to say, okay, I trust this. I'm going to at least give it a try.
Yeah. One of my more celebrated moments of the month was when they liked a tweet of ours. They knew we existed, at least for
Yay.
a moment.
Well, we got to keep hashtagging bands then. That's the only way to go, I guess.
Damn straight. And this is either how far out of the loop I am, I just don't care, or how different but still good they made it. I was actually clueless that this was a Billie Eilish cover until you told me.
It's like it is a cover, but they only cover like the last half of that song.
That's okay. That's what's going on then.
Yep.
Gotcha. And another cool cover that I enjoyed this month, Her, the acronym Her. The song is The Glass, and it was the making of a good Foo Fighters song. I heard this song when it first came out, and I was rather dismissive of it. It was not a thrilling Foo Fighters tune. I haven't been excited to hear new Foo Fighters for over a decade now. I love Dave Grohl, and I went to one of the concerts in 2018, and don't get me wrong, it was incredible. But I went to hear all the hits. The album that they were touring and their overall sound now to me has gotten stale. This cover made me aware of something, though. Dave is still writing good music. I'm just kind of worn out from the sound.
And that's all it is, because whenever you listen to a new Foo Fighters album, you don't hate the songs. You're just tired. You're just fatigued of it. But the DGs was a hit.
That was different.
But that was completely, entirely different. Hail Satin was a great album, but yes, fatigue. It's a real thing. You just hope that maybe when they keep releasing stuff, they keep making new fans.
Yeah.
Because we do need an elder statesman rock band to keep going out.
Well, speaking of elder statesman rock bands, there was a band called The Smile that came along, and I kind of looked into them and went, wait a minute, this is Radiohead. Literally, it's Tom York and the guitar player.
And boy, when you said that, I'm like, I am not listening to this. Because their Radiohead's later releases, they were too ambitious for me. I would try, and there's just some chaotic electronic stuff going on that I tap out after 3 seconds. I'm like, I just can't focus on that. I almost stood my ground and I didn't listen to this, but then I figured, I once listened to an entire Miley Cyrus album for this show. There was more payoff in these 2 songs than that entire album. Fuck Pablo. That song was terrible. When we were sharing songs on our playlist, there were a couple days that we got in this space of mellower songs like this one, which I suspect in the next few months, when we have much more of this darkness coming in, being the winter, we're going to be drawn to more of that stuff. You have suns at what, like 3:30 now? We're close to like 4:15 now. It's only going to get darker.
Well, some of the newer stars that are shining at the moment, there were the Snuts, and they actually let me down. I've gone on and on about them for about the past year and a half on this show, but they're still worth checking out. The problem is they released an EP that had 3 songs already released and 2 new songs, and nothing's awful, but there's nothing new that I'm excited about.
Did you burn yourself out on them, or just entirely like a change of direction for them?
I think it's a little bit of both. They have an album coming out in February, and it's pretty much a guarantee that it's going to contain these 5 songs off the EP now.
Yeah.
But why are bands doing this? You were talking earlier with Judas Priest, dribbling a single every few months, telling their fans they have a surprise and releasing an EP full of stuff already released, and then announcing an album. It just drags on for too long. These singles that came onto this EP probably started coming out in February of last year. We're not talking 5 months old. There's going to be a song that comes on the new album in February that's already a year old, more than likely. And as far as the Snuts changing direction, yeah, when they first came onto the scene, they were a guitar band, and they had riffs. They kind of reminded me of Franz Ferdinand. There was a lot of melody in their music. And now they sound like everything's been written on MIDI pads, and the originality of the guitar work is done. maybe they're going to be that band. We've talked about this before, that falls into that trap of having a really great debut and then everything kind of goes downhill from there. And that's what we're finding out. So I would say to everybody, go check out the album from 2020, because Jim went on about that one for a long
Yeah,
time,
it's a
and
good album.
it's good. But I think I'm gonna kind of be done talking about them for a while unless something really piques my interest.
Yeah, what's the old saying? You got 20 years to write your first album and then 2 months to write your second, or
Mm-hmm.
6 months to write your second. So maybe, and it's not diminishing their debut album. And, maybe they're having some outside influence saying, hey, come on, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go. We got to get this out. Because, like you said, this goes into our earlier conversation about the way too early singles releases.
Yeah.
There's just so much content out there. It's got to be so stressful for a band to feel that pressure to stay relevant and finding new ways to stay in social media feeds. We are content creators, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, albeit however small or big you might want to say the Jam Yearbook is, but if you want to be a content creator and you want to be successful at it, you got to create a shit ton of content. This could legitimately be a second job or third job for somebody if they really want to make this something that they make a living at.
I really think a lot of bands actually do have social media content creators that follow them
They
around
have
just
to
keep them relevant. Yeah.
they have to, because a band should be able to, I mean, if you're driven to do it, okay, that's fine.
Yep.
And you may be, but I think then if you're worried about the social media or you're worried about the interviews, then the music's going to suffer.
In the defense of it, because we constantly like to knock new stuff, but we think the way that we caught onto music when we were younger was perfect.
Of course it was.
They don't have MTV anymore showing the video 5 times a day. And that's what we had when we were 17, 16, 15 years old. And for 6 months, that song might be in rotation on MTV and in the top 10 or the top 20 countdown. So I think the world shifted. Kids aren't running home to watch music videos the way that we did. And they're still trying to catch these kids in the moment. And it's little short social media blurps. And
Yeah.
the single has been caught into that wave.
Yeah, because I wanted to say that it's all about choice now, right? Between, hey, I'm going to go to YouTube, watch this. I'm going to go to Spotify, listen to this. But really, when you think about how streaming services screw over artists,
yeah,
where only your large artists are going to come up on, hey, I'm listening to this, whatever playlist, and then something auto plays. It's probably going to be something more, something that's got a larger amount of streams than something you've never heard before. Again, new bands. I don't relish being a new band and trying to make it now, because it's a completely different game now.
There's a streaming service that we happen to be on that rhymes with not a guy. I think it's the closest I can think. That actually, if you go and you click on new releases and you go to look at it, it only offers you about 10 new releases. But there are hundreds of them coming out every single week. And what I do enjoy about going to New Boob, that's what I'll say instead of the name, music, and opening that
Boob
up.
Job.
Yeah.
What?
And opening that up is they have a much bigger range of new release music. And yeah, but anyway, we're getting off on a tangent, Matt.
Yep, you're right though. I think Spotify kind of governs, it kind of throttles down the new stuff that you find.
Oh, they definitely have
randomly.
There's definitely a lot of label influence as to what they're going to show you that's newly released. Big time. All right, Matt, here comes her name again.
Oh, no, not Taylor. Oh, okay.
No.
Biba Doobie, yeah.
Biba Doobie had a guest feature on a really cool British rap song called Fear of Flying by Mac Weather featuring Anime. I like this song a lot. It has a really cool feel to it. It kind of reminded me of Kid Cudi and, a few other rap artists from the past 10 years that you've gotten me into.
Well, it's rap with the melody.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've said before, I can be challenged with lyrics when I first hear songs. Sometimes it takes me, several listens before I'll even really pay attention to the lyrics. I get hooked on a sound or a melody. That's what hooks me in. So that's my biggest challenge with rap. If it's just a drum bass thing, you better come strong with the lyrics or I'm not going to give you the time of day.
Yep.
And Jim, she's got a live album out now.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of it, the crowd is chanting, "We want Doobie." So I'm sure a lot of people are going to catch on to that. And you can actually hear the crowd singing along too. They're kind of going nuts. It sounds like a bunch of girls at a Beatles concert back in the day.
That's cool. So we talked about music in the past reaching us in our quiet moments. And I really found solace in the song End of the World by Sea Rose. It reminds me of Mazzy Star, really reminiscent from our generation.
I almost shared this song with you, but I thought you would bust me for being indie Matt. I like it when we find the same song at, around the same time. Sometimes this kind of mellow is what you need. When it finds me at the right time, I'm all in. And again, we got a lot more darkness now. We're going to start having more of these songs appeal to us.
Yes.
And then I found a guy named Q. I think he goes by Q Marsden. The song is Hello. So again, another EP to talk about. Q, the name he goes by, it's not a political thing. It's his moniker. All three of these songs I love a ton. It's this song, Hello, especially. It's catchy. It's got a 90s feel. He had an album out this past May that is definitely worth checking out now. That one, Soul Present, finds more influence in the 80s, but I'm hooked on this guy right now. He's in constant rotation with me.
Isn't Q from James Bond?
He makes the gadgets, right?
Yeah, he does. He does.
I'm not a Bond guy, but I know that much.
This was a really good find. And when you sent it to me, I was expecting a poor cover of Adele or Lionel Richie's Hello. When I saw Hello, I was pleasantly surprised by something fresh and original.
Yeah, cute. Love it. I can't recommend that enough. And aside from Teen Jesus, there wasn't much rock in November. Spiritual Cramp, though, I found them kind of late in the month and I shared them. I don't know what your thoughts were. We didn't really talk about them, but they fit the bill. They kind of hit in my head. These guys must think they're the Ramones. 10 songs in 25 minutes. I say, hell yeah. Don't beat an idea to death. Just get to the point. They're a little bit more Hives than Ramones. They might, sit in the middle, maybe a little closer to the Hives, I guess. Either way, I didn't hear a bad song on this album. I really liked it.
Well, I enjoyed listening to it. Matt, there are Jim Jams and there are Matt moments, which are usually the exact opposite of indie Matt. So there are two different sides to the coin sometimes with what we're going to get out of you on the show. And Matt moments really involve a noisy punk band. So this was a solid
usually
find. Yeah. And you've proven to me more than once that real punk is not dead.
Yeah. Q was my leading artist this week until I found Czarface. It was unexpected that hip hop led the way for me this week. And this is like a last maybe 5 days of the month that I found it, but it is hands down my favorite thing. Czarface is a project of Inspectah Deck from the Wu-Tang Clan. And this album's artificial intelligence is awesome. The sound, the album art, the geeky Marvel references. I love everything about it. It's superb. And there were a few songs leading the way. You Know My Style, Mama's Basement, 111 Chelsea. This whole album it's great. I can't believe I love an entire hip hop album. Usually it's like a song here, a song there. No, I love this whole album.
This is the best album you have brought to the show in a long time. Everyone, he really saved the best for last today, because this is where we're going to stop. If you like hip hop with great narrative, great sampling, and real drums, this is what you want. There was even some cool synth in there that I really enjoyed. Musically, lyrically, it is complete. And the beats behind everything just take me right back to like early 90s hip hop before everything became gangsta. So bravo to you, Matt, for saving Blow-Vember.
Blow-Vember, yeah.
Blow-Vember,
bravo to me.
Yes.
No good songs. November ended with some really good fucking songs. Czarface really did truly save it all. I sent Mark, my brother Mark, the Mama's Basement. I mean, you start dropping bars about Alpha Flight and Moon Knight. Oh my God, the ultimate nullifier. I mean, you're gonna get some comic book geekery out of me on that one.
Yeah,
so it's great.
It was really good. It was really good. Thank you for finding that for us. And that is it, everybody. We are going to wrap up November. It was not that great. It possibly could have been worse, but we did some digging for you. So hopefully we found stuff that you liked. And hopefully there are a few songs that we have now added to the playlist that you'll go and get some enjoyment out of, because we definitely did still find some good stuff. It just seems like we had to look under a lot of rocks this month. We had to look
Yeah.
under, you know?
It's usually like at the half month mark, we start either getting beaten down or people start releasing good stuff. And this one was probably like the last week in November. We started really amping up our communication, like, oh, check this out, check this out, check this out.
Which is why, just like your Spotify rap, we are not going to pay any attention to December. When we get to we are not going to do a show in January that wraps up December. If something really good comes out, of course, we're going to bring it up and we're going to talk about it. And we may still add songs to the playlist, so we'll keep that going. But what we're going to do next is get to a show where we discuss the best of the year 2023, kind of old school Jam Yearbook style.
And Jim, of course, we're going to bring you the worst of what we found in 2023.
Well, that's what we have to do, isn't it? Yeah.
It wouldn't be me if I didn't bitch and complain about something.
No, we have to have at least one good rant in the last episode of 2023, because
it's not all sunshine and roses, Jim.
No, it hasn't been. It hasn't been a perfect year of music, so I'm fine with that. Matt, I do think it's your turn to wrap it up.
It is. Once again, thank you for tuning into the GM Yearbook, and hopefully you pull on some of the threads that we have revealed here, and we're talking about November 2023. Hopefully, listen to that Czarface album. It's really fucking good.
Check it out.
I love it so much. And we will see you here next time for more GM Yearbook activity.
See you next time, everybody. Peace, love, and podcast.